Breaking news out of the NBA and kind of the worst kept secret now officially comes to fruition. The Suns decide to fire head coach Bud after just one season in Phoenix, and it was that bad. I mean, it was as disastrous of a season as you could possibly imagine. They finish out the year with just 36 wins, 46 losses. This is a team that was projected 48 and a half wins was what they had at the beginning of the year. I mean, they were supposed to be knocking on the door 50 wins, a team that could compete possibly if things went their way for a national or for a championship. And instead, they are the only team in the NBA that is not in the playoffs, that is not in the play-in, and that is not in the lottery. They don't own their pick, and they're not doing anything but sitting at home right now wondering what went wrong. And they head into an offseason. This is just the tip of the iceberg of all of the things that are going to come down because the KD trade is looming. The Devin Booker potential trade is now looming. The Bradley Beal, are you going to buy him out, is still looming. There are so many questions for a franchise that just a few years ago, everything in the world was trending for them to be in the right direction and keep going. But new ownership, it's kind of the kiss of death in some ways. They decide to try and roll the dice and expedite the process. And when you do that, you skip steps. And that's exactly what has happened for the Suns. And I got to give a huge shout out to Connor here at Burn City Sports. He had a great question for Booker after their last home game of the year, asking about if they had skipped some steps in the process of building this team. And let's roll that clip right now because, I mean, it was a great question, great response, one that even ESPN picked up.
But when you consider just how important, building a culture and an identity is to winning, do you feel like you guys kind of built like an adequate culture this season?
I think that's one of the steps that, we still, like I was saying, learning through the wins and the losses and, just continue to get better, every day, no matter what the circumstances are. And, like I said, we had spots where we did it, but it has to be something that's turned on at all times.
So Booker saying they didn't have the culture, they didn't have the right things in place to build kind of the winning franchise, and all of that points directly at head coach Bud. And it is just problematic, and it is just an example of everything that has been this season. Whether it was the initial kind of the start of January where you start messing around with these starting lineups and you're benching guys and people don't know what their roles are anymore. You move Bradley Beal to the bench. You try and find scapegoats. You put it on Nurkic and you say that he's the reason that this team isn't really working, and you go out and you trade for him. You trade him away. You get Richards, but okay, that's not really moving the needle too much. Didn't really do too much. You take Tyus Jones out of the lineup. You don't, for whatever reason, oh my gosh, it was so frustrating. You don't play your rookies when they are not only respected by the vets, but they're playing well and they're giving you some juice. Where was done for the first 5 months of the season? The one guy that got in the defensive stance and really got after it. And then just to the fact there was no fight. There was no heart in this team in so many ways that we talked about it before about how they would get punched in the mouth in games. And rather than bowing their back and kind of coming back at other people, they just kind of wilted and looked like they didn't want any part of it. This team quit so much throughout the season. And part of that is a lack of leadership from the players, and it's been documented. A lot of people feel like Booker has kind of like lost that competitive edge a little bit, that he picked up a little bit too much of KD, who was the best player on this team, and yet he's also one of the worst leaders. He's one of the guys that is just going to go out. He just wants to hoop. He doesn't want to do anything else other than take care of himself. He's not really worried about the kind of the rest of it. Doesn't want that part of it. Just wants to be a guy that can get you 25. There's value in that, but it also leaves you wanting a lot more. So you have a team of no leaders, and you had a coach that was supposed to be known for his defense, except this team got exponentially worse defensively from where they were a year ago to where they were this year. And offensively, it was one-on-one ball and guys standing around wondering what was going to happen in pieces that were talented that he could not find any way to make them work together. And this move was needed after 1 year for a guy that won an NBA title. It just hit a point where there was no culture and there was no hope that this thing was going to turn around. You needed a fresh face, and it's wild to think about how excited everyone was with this hire initially, but he did not connect with this team. He did not reach them and kind of be able to get them in a way that they wanted to play for each other. That's the one biggest thing. There was no thought when watching this team that these guys like each other, that they want to play with each other, that they cared. There was a thought of, I don't want to be personally embarrassed and I want to go out and get my own numbers, but collectively, like, it's whatever at this point. And it was so disappointing and hard to watch a team that had a pretty good start to the year. About a month and a half in, it felt like this team was going to have a chance to try and make a little bit of a push. And it fell apart after that. Like, I mean, it got real bad. They finished the season 22nd in the league in points per game given up on defense, 116.6. Now, the problem with that is it was worse than that, but the teams all below them were all trying to lose games outside of two of them. The teams below them are the San Antonio Spurs that went into full tank mode as soon as Wemby got hurt. The Memphis Grizzlies, who are trying to win, but it hurts when Jared Jackson was out for a while and kind of where some of the injuries, the jaw nonsense that they're dealing with. The Denver Nuggets obviously tried to win games, but that's just kind of what they are this season. Then after that, you got the Pelicans, the Hawks, the Bulls, the Wizards, the Jazz. All right, maybe the Bulls were trying to win games, but they also shipped away, two of their starters in the middle of the season. Everyone else doing their best to give up points. And those were the only teams that the Suns were ahead of defensively this year. I mean, they were awful. They were doing Olay defense, and Bradley Beal might have been the worst one of it all. And just the amount of drama surrounding this team that he could never kind of get a hold of and kind of right the ship. When stuff like that's happening, when there is unease amongst the team, you need a leader to kind of settle everybody down, and that did not happen with Coach Bud. Every time stuff went wrong, he just kind of sat there, like, what is that? What is this, like, crying, upset-looking, pouty face doing in those situations that's really helping a team, like, galvanize them? What are you giving to inspire your team at that point? The answer is nothing. And I don't know what you can expect if that is what you're providing for the team is no leadership. They're getting worse by every metric. And the culture, it's going to keep circling back to the culture of how awful it was and kind of how it just completely fell apart under him in 1 year. And all of a sudden, we talked about, how bad the coaching job was the year before. It's been 2 straight years of shells of coaches now. At a certain point, that turns into, it's not necessarily on them, it's kind of on the players, or maybe it's on the guy hiring them. So, like I said, this is the first domino to fall. There's a lot more following this after. I mean, like I said, you got all those players. What do you do with you have a couple first-round picks, 3 of them that they split up, so you have some trade value out there? Do you hit full reboot, or do you try and add a couple pieces and a new coach and run it back 1 more year? I think you have to hit full reboot at this point, but I don't know, when you have $1 million owners, the last thing they want to do is hear that talk. They want to be able to say, I have the money, let's go out and buy the pieces that we need to be the next kind of team that flips it over in a hurry. Problem is that's so unsustainable, and it very, very rarely ever works. So the question now, too, is who's going to be the next Suns head coach? What kind of names are out there right now? And, you've got a few that are going to be interesting. Mike Malone would be one that's out there, but I don't know if his personality trait works really well with this team. Do you want to go for another veteran coach that's kind of had some success, or do you want to roll the dice and try and get a younger guy maybe one of his first coaching staffs, and see how it works. It's worked pretty well across the league right now, and it's a copycat league, whether it's Chauncey Billups, who just got an extension after he's been doing a great job. JJ Redick is going to be in the running for Coach of the Year, and he famously only ever coached his kids' little AAU teams. Like, he's never really kind of been a coach at this level, and yet he got it done. They look really, really good with him there. I don't know what like veteran coach you would want to bring into this situation, or who would want to like step into this, but there's going to be guys out there. Anytime you have this kind of talent on a team, anytime it's an NBA coaching job, people, regardless of the situation, are going to be interested. But you can lure at least some talented coaches when you have a Devin Booker, when you still have a KD at this point. They are going to steal, and an owner that's clearly willing to spend money. So now it's just, how you kind of figure it out, who you're going to go out and get. A lot of questions, not really a surprise, like I said, to make this move, but there is a lot of questions around it. One of the favorites right now on to be the next head coach, and these are the two names that you're going to start hearing a lot of. Tyronn Lue, is his time done with the Clippers? Is he going to kind of try and move on after kind of this season? A lot of people think he keeps being a strong candidate in coaching cycles because he's really good. I kind of feel like he'd rather stay with the Clippers for another year until maybe another situation opened up, or went somewhere else, because they're having a good year. I can't see him quite leaving that to join this mess. Steve Nash is an interesting one. Steve Nash clearly has the ties to the Suns. He's had a little bit of coaching experience, and, he's got some experience at taking over teams like this and dealing with KD. He's had some experience dealing with superstars when he was with the Nets. Would he want to step into this? Would they want to do that and bring him in? I don't know. A lot of questions, but ultimately, big news. Coach Bud fired. Not a surprise. Needed to happen after the season. And get ready. Buckle up. It's going to be a very adventurous offseason for the Suns, because there are plenty of more moves yet to come. This is just the first one. So the first domino has fallen. How many more are coming? I don't know, but there's going to be a lot more. So stay tuned for that.